Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary for another session. I will be here briefly, hopefully 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or maybe more. I don't know. Depends how it goes. It's been a while. I'm still under the weather, have a little cough, so bear with me if I don't come in clearly. I hope you guys can hear me. But I'll make this brief. Today, as you can see, the topic is William Ruto controls the narrative. William Ruto totally controls the political narrative in Kenya. I will tell you why this is important and why you should pay attention, okay? But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, comrades, if this is your first time here in this channel, my name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So if you like that kind of content, do not hesitate. Hit that subscribe button, like button, and put the notification on. So every time I can come in, you can always find me here. So let's jump to it. Now, why am I saying that William Ruto controls the political narrative? Okay. It is important, and this is done deliberately by this president. Okay. He understands. I've always told you from my previous video, I've always explained to you guys that it is important to have control of what is perceived to be the truth, even though it might not be the entirely true. What do I mean? Basically, I'm saying that it is important for this administration to have total control of the narrative. Leading up to September 25th, 2004, when the Gen Zs came out there and protested in mass and almost overthrew William Samoei Ruto, he learned a very, very painful lesson, and he's trying to make sure that he doesn't repeat it anymore. What was it? Leading up to that September 25th, 2024, the youth, the Gen Zs, were out there, especially online, discussing, organizing, agonizing ways in which their voice could be heard. They were drowning any kind of state propaganda from this Ruto administration. In fact, Ruto had nowhere to go. He sent Hussein Mohammed, or whatever the case is, that chubby little man who was trying to explain, was having a hard time explaining what the housing levy was all about, whether it was a housing levy or was it a tax or whatever the case is. And he was sweating in that public discourse that they were having in NTV, I believe, and so forth, okay? Even Gachagua himself, I remember one time when he was sitting by Omkiom Tata, or he was in a radio station somewhere, I forgot where, when he was asked what is bottom up economic model. And he was having a hard time explaining it. So what I'm trying to say is this: Ruto at that time, anything that was coming from this administration was the butt of every political joke. No one took them seriously, and they were outrightly rejected and refuted by the public, anything that they were saying, okay? So he learned something, that if he doesn't have control of the narrative, okay, he is going to lose the war. Now, it's still a battle. The war is not over yet because Ruto is still the head of the executive. He's still the head of state in Kenya. Now, leading up to that September, you could see the posters were being posted on various X spaces, X accounts of different individuals. And there were X spaces where Gen Z discussed these issues. In fact, if you remember, Ruto once took part in one. He came out to, he went where the people are, because he realized that his voice, standing in a podium somewhere in State House, does not move anyone on the ground. Okay? And the real discussions are happening online. Okay? So, like I said, his voice was never taken seriously. His voice was drowned by the Gen Zs, the people, majority of Kenyans who are actually having these discussions online. So when these guys were organizing online, where they're going to meet, how they're going to do it, flags, tukutane na sijui nini, bottles of water and all this stuff, he realized, aha, you know what? These guys are organized. And the one thing that is actually one place that these people are actually meeting up and having these discussions and organizing themselves to actually bring my administration down is the internet. So he tried to abduct, which he did abduct a lot of Gen Zs who lost their lives, by the way. That was one way of doing it. He tried to intimidate. He paid off a couple, okay? But it was still not working because these guys were like roaches. You kill one, three more pops up, okay? So that was not a sustainable way of controlling or trying to subdue dissent, okay? Or controlling the narrative, because the truth is the truth. And as long as people are talking, you can't kill everyone. You can't abduct everyone. You can't do everything. So what he did something that is a multifaceted way of approaching this challenge. Number one, he hired a host of pro-government bloggers that were going to counter, troll, real, genuine discussions that are happening or posts that are being brought up against Ruto. Number two, he did not stop with the abductions. Number three, he did not stop with shadow banning certain accounts, limiting access through hacking their agents in every platform that may not be favorable to Ruto. He will try to hack you down, use his hackers that he pays to hack and find out more about you, see if they can reach you, see if they can get you compromised, see if they can intimidate you. You know, in fact, some of these hackers or some of these hired pro-regime, Ruto regime bloggers or paid vloggers, they will pose as opponents of this administration. They will pose as critics of this administration. Then, you know, they take part on these discussions or whatever the case is, wakisha kusoma, wakajua, oh, jamani hivi, then they use the most effective way to deal with you, whether if it's, abducting you, if you're somebody who's abductable, or intimidate you and wanakuambia watakuua or whatever the case. In some cases, they will even, abduct you and you get lost, okay? But here's the thing, though. Once he took charge and this thing balanced out, okay? On the internet, Ruto does not have the complete control, but he has some level of control where he can he does have a lot of control on the internet as it stands right now. Because for every post that genuinely criticizes Ruto, there's about 5 or 4 trolling accounts that counter what that post is about. Okay? Now, that is on the main line where the people are congregating virtually to speak freely against this corrupt Ruto regime. It is not only Ruto regime that is only corrupt. It is the whole political elites. I've been singing this time after time again, letting you guys know that, hey, the problem is not Ruto by himself. It's the whole political oligarchs of Kenya, the criminal enterprise, these fake politicians, these looters, land grabbers, murderers, thugs, okay, that pretend, okay, masquerade as our representatives, masquerade as people who care about the plight of the common mwananchi, okay? the usual suspect, the Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, okay, William Samoei Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, Wamalwa, Gachagua, okay, these folks who are pretending that they're running for presidency, they're running for gubernatorial seats, they're running for senatorial position, they're running for parliamentary seats. These are nothing but con men and women. And they're working together, at least at the higher level. They choose who's going to win and who's not going to choose, who's not going to win, okay? And who is not going to rule, and how they're going to divide up the loot. Now, let me get to the political aspect that majority of Kenyans seems to be excited about. Let me start with ODM, because that seems to be the hot topic. Everyone is getting excited about what's happening on ODM. Oh, ODM is now lost. It's sold its hold. They're trying to find themselves. There's the Oburu faction, and there's the Orengo faction and Babu Owino faction, whatever the case is, or the Winnie Odinga faction. I told you guys, these are nothing but shenanigans. In my last video, I told you that the Babu Owino, Winnie Odinga, Agre James Orengo's faction, they're just mere noisemakers. They want to give you an illusion that they're actually against this broad-based government. Why? This is the same stand that ODM has always maintained. They want to be part of the government and remain in the opposition at the same time, even when Raila Odinga was alive and was the chairperson of the party. Remember when Raila Odinga in one meeting is saying, I'm not in government, we are not in government, we are still in the opposition. Then in another speech, he would tell us that, give us time so that we can work out this, the development, give us time as government, now that we have come to this handshake arrangement. You see what I'm saying? They always want to play both sides. Why is that? Because they do not want to lose their core supporters. A lot of Kenyans, a lot of ODM supporters were not happy with this broad-based government. ODM coming together with UDA, which is the ruling party, working together in this broad-based arrangement. Majority core supporters of ODM were not happy with this. Okay? So in order to appease them, ODM had to have a faction of it playing the role of, we are against the broad base. And for those of them who are supporting the arrangement, there you have the Mbadis, the Hassan Johos, the Opio Wandai, the Gladys Wanga, and the rest who are going to parrot the same nonsense that we are in government and we are helping Ruto achieve his goals to move Kenya forward. That way, they're trying to keep the house together, their support base together, because they want to, on one hand, convince the Luos who are looking up to these politicians as them doing something positive towards the Luo community, or trying to promise them that by them joining the executive branch of government, that will bring development in Luo Nyanza. Okay? Then there are those who are against the Ruto government and the fact that Raila Odinga and his cohorts got into this arrangement with Ruto. In order to make them happy, they will use the Sifunas, James Orengo, Babu Owino, to play a role and pretend that they are not happy with this broad-based arrangement. And they will always make a lot of noise by pretending to criticize everything that the president does, maintaining that one-term narrative. But the truth is, these guys are fully in support of William Samoei Ruto. I told you in my previous video, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you this example very quickly. Remember when everyone was excited once Orengo came out and said, oh, we shall go back to Mandamano, oh, we shall do this. Then, Raila's daughter, what's her name, Winnie, came out and says, kuna wengine wanatembea na sisi mchana na usiku, they're against us. Then Babu Owino came out and whatever, and Sifuna, you saw what he said in the parliament yesterday, criticizing, being a loudmouth that he is, criticizing the president. Oh, sijui nini. But at the end of the day, yesterday, it was just yesterday, the same James Agri Orengo went and shook hands with William Samoei Ruto. Okay? He was so respectful, meek, okay? Humble himself in front of the president as if the president was the king. You see what I'm saying? So ODM are a bunch of sellouts, just like any other political party out there. Even the leaders who you see in Mount Kenya, who you are happy about, the Wamunyoro, who you might think, oh, Anna is injecting, oh, whatever, he's mumbling and bumbling around against Ruto every day. It is a game that they are playing to give you an illusion of having an opposition that has the voice of the people or an opposing voice. See, in a democracy, they always want to paint this picture that, there's an opposition. Kenya is not a democracy. That is to let me just start there. Kenya is not a democracy. On paper, we are supposed to be a constitutional democracy, but we are not. Kenya does not reflect any ideological, political system or economic system as we know it. Kenya is simply a criminal enterprise ruled by its colonial power, who have hired, handpicked these criminals that are looting Kenya to oversee their empire, their investment. You understand what I'm saying? Ruto is simply an overseer, a watchman, who is there to make sure that the British Empire interests in Kenya are safeguarded. A young man called Nzioki posted about how much gold is being mined out of Kenya in Tsavo Park, National Park, or in Batuk. Is it? In, what's that place? They're mining it out of Kenya, and Kenya has nothing, gets nothing out of it. And they're shipping it to England to be processed, and it stays there. You understand what I'm saying? And Joho is the whatever minister of all that stuff. But what is Joho doing? So this is what I'm saying. Don't be fooled by these people. All these presidential candidates, if you look at their background, they're tied in deep corruption. So anyway, let me stick to what I was saying. The reason why I say William Samoei controls the narrative. Look at what the perception that he's painting to the unsuspecting people of Kenya the narrative that he's actually writing as we look. He gave that choreographed, carefully orchestrated show at the parliamentary building when he was giving his speech in the State of the Nation, I guess. Okay? Nice seeing you, Mugendi. Karibu sana. You know the first order of business. Thank you so much. Okay? It was well orchestrated, rehearsed. When he started speaking, and a good number of these lawmakers stood up, making zoo noises by screaming, two-term, two-term. What was that meant to achieve? Even Ruto stood up and pretended to be moved by the shouts, by these clowns at the parliamentary building, screaming two-term. Ruto paused to act as if he was moved to tears. Oh, I'm moved by the people of Kenya who want me to continue for another term because I'm doing such a good job. That is the programming that is happening now. This is done in a carefully orchestrated sequence. Now that Raila Odinga, who was the stumbling block, is out of the way, Uhuru Kenyatta, who are here, went for a chemo treatment in Boston. Some people are saying he's not in good condition. He might also join Raila. I don't know. I don't have the information. Ruto is in total control. This man went to Nyanza and Mombasa in that 20-year ODM celebration. He already had Oburu in his pockets. To be fair, Oburu is not even supposed to be the chairperson of ODM because none of him voted for him. It was just a couple of people, Kinawanga and Nani, Joho, decided, okay, Oburu is going to take over. Why? Because Oburu shares the same view as them, that they should stick and stay in government and support Ruto in order to continue enjoying the spoils of Ruto's loot. Stay in these ministerial positions. That's why in Mombasa, when you saw the loudest noises, people who are screaming in defense of their own selfish ambition, were the folks that are in Ruto's ODM members who abdicated their positions in parliament as representatives of the people to become part of Ruto's cabinet. The Joho, the Mbadi, they were the most animated members of ODM in that 20th anniversary nonsense. Because they understand with the absence of Raila Odinga, they are operating in uncharted terrain, politically speaking. Nothing is guaranteed. So they have to make sure that Oburu, who shares their same vision of being tumbocrats, beneficiaries of this Ruto's regime, becomes the chairperson who decides the kind of arrangement ODM will have moving forward with Ruto's regime. And in this case, since they want to stay as ministers and CSS and all this appointed position in Ruto's government, they want Oburu, who they picked as the chairperson, to remain the chairperson, even though he's unconstitutionally made one. So that they can continue the arrangement. This all plays in Ruto's hand. Because, believe it or not, ODM needs Ruto than Ruto needs ODM. As a matter of fact, Ruto does not have to struggle to dictate what direction ODM takes politically. Because once he has Oburu, he has everybody. He has Wanga, he has Mbadi, he has Joho, who was threatening to turn against ODM. And guess what? He has Babu Owino. He has Sifuna, who are pretending to be against this regime, but in reality, they are part and parcel of this Ninio. They just play it out in public that they are against the arrangement so that they can score some cool points with the people who are opposing this regime. So you see, Ruto is not losing any sleep about ODM supporting him. He knows he has them in his pocket fully. Then he goes to parliament and gives this speech, and there these dunderheads were screaming, two-term, two-term. What is happening is Ruto perceptually is consolidating his support. Meanwhile, he's doing what he's doing at the IEBC, where his loyalists are in charge of the IEBC, the governing body that will be constitutionally mandated with overseeing the electoral process. Now, and I'll make this short because I don't want this video to be too long. Don't you find it interesting that Okia Omtata went to court for the very thing I warned you will happen? Remember when I told you, when some of you are coming here and telling me, oh, there's no way Ruto will steal the elections. Let's tuchukue kura tukavote. Because tutaenda kulinda kura at the polling station. And I told you it won't be complicated. Because once you vote for whoever you want to vote to remove Ruto, and Ruto knows he's going to lose, watajifanya ati hiyo result ambayo is from that polling station, wataipeleka Bomas, so they can do what? They can verify to see if there's any monkey business. And indeed, they shall find fault in it and change the results. And that is exactly what Okia Omtata went to court to Ninio to dispute. The very thing I was warning you guys about. Munaweza mkaenda mkalinda kura, or you stand on the polling station until the polling station is closed. But by the time it is closed na mnakachukua mkarudi nyumbani mfungue TV ati mnaangalia the news results, you will see that the news results of that polling station that you are lindering is different from vile mlitoka pale. But it is being done Simultaneously, all these things, Ruto is creating a perception that he has support by those who were clapping on that parliament yesterday, programming you, telling you that, you see, the representatives from these different places, wameamua ni 2-term. ODM, as you can see, led by Oburu, who is their chairperson, ODM, who is representative of the Nyanza, people of Nyanza, they have decided to endorse me for another 2-term. So perceptually, he's telling you that he's going to win easy because he has the support that you thought he didn't have. Couple that with the IBC loyalists, corrupt loyalists, who are going to do that thing. So the narrative is there being written to do what? To justify the cooked up results that shall be announced in 2027 presidential election, IEBC. It will be used to corroborate the cooked up results at the IEBC. So when IEBC announces Ruto ameshinda, wengine wenu sina, I know you chatter boxes will be there. Oh, how did he win? How did he win? Alitoa kura wapi? Alitoa kura wapi? Atasema mnaona, Nyanza under Oburu's leadership, they decided to stick with me. Joho, who seems to be the kingpin of Mombasa, stuck with me. Ndio hiyo nimeshinda Coast. Rift Valley ndio hiyo. Mnaona huko wa Somali are with me. Mbere ndio huo, unaona, I had some votes from. You see what I'm saying? That is how he will justify the cooked up results in 2027. Because he needs the perception, the narrative, to convince you that he wants he will be winning fair and square in 2027. Because without the perception and the narrative, there'll be revolt. Uhuru Kenyatta, when he stole the election in 2017, lacked the narrative. The perception was Uhuru ameiba. So the people were not going for it. They were like, no. We shall install the rightful winner. In 2007, when Kibaki swore himself in, the perception, the narrative was that there's no way Kibaki can win an election by having support only from Central. And if the perception does not support your victory, you shall have chaos, revolt. And that's what happened in 2007. And we know what happened. That's why it is important for Ruto to start writing this narrative early. And he's doing so by drafting what you see is happening in ODM, by what you see in that State of the Nation. It's a bunch of nonsense, but it is designed to start programming you into accepting this false narrative that Ruto enjoys majority of the support of Kenyans. And the crooked results, the cooked up results that shall be announced by the IBC 2027 shall be justified by the perception, the false perception that Ruto has majority of support. And he will have readily made goons that are ready to protest, to counter any protest that erupts against his victory, as he had learned through the Gen Z protest. You see what I'm saying? So anajipanga. While you guys are making noise, mna scream 2 times, you 1 time, you chukweni kura. You see how then you come up and say that Ruto is such a clever politician. Ruto is a very clever. He's not clever. Ni wewe ndio unalala. You're not using your head. Sasa zile mnapangwa hamjui, mnapiga makelele. But anyway, I didn't want to make this thing long. I just want you to think about what's happening. So the question is, how do we counter the false narrative that Ruto is trying to paint as it stands right now? It's not only Ruto. Ruto is the mascot, the representation of this old, yesteryear, corrupt, criminal, political elites of Kenya. That includes every member of the opposition. Gachagua na watu wetu. Okay? You know the rest. So we have to win the battle of against the false narrative. My next video will be on that. How shall we counter Ruto's false narrative? Not only Ruto's false narrative, the false narrative by these political oligarchs. The Martha Karuas, the Gachaguas, the Uhurus, the Kalonzos. We have to counter that and let the true narrative be painted, written by the people of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades, my name is Kenya Revolutionary. I'll talk to you guys later. Subscribe, share, like, comment, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings. I'm out.